Hello there friends, how are you doing? Welcome back to another video. Now today I'd like to tell you about my journaling system, why I started journaling and how I'm doing it these days to provide mental clarity and peace on the daily basis. So I'm going to be telling you all about that. Here are all of my journals for the past 10 years. It is actually almost the anniversary of the 10th year of me journaling, and it's been a great journey so far. So let's start by telling you about why I started. So this here was my first ever journal. I just sewed a cover on it with some cloth that I had at home, and this just said the end, and it says, "This is life before you know who you're going to be," which is probably a sentence that I saw on Tumblr back in 2014 that I thought, you know, that's very cool. And my first entry was on the 10th of December of 2014, and the reason why I actually started journaling was because at this point in my life, my grandma, which was a very big part of my life, had gotten diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and she was starting to not understand most of the things I would try to tell her and talk to her about. And so I decided to start writing for her, because at this point I didn't really understand what Alzheimer's was, and I thought it was recoverable. I thought she would be cured from it, and so I thought I would write to her everything I wanted to tell her, and once she got better I could read it out loud so that she wouldn't have missed on anything. Poor me, I didn't understand Alzheimer's at that point, but all of my entries start with "Dear Grandma." Over here it's written in Portuguese because I am Portuguese, so it says "Querida Avó." And I think my first 3 journals I wrote to my grandma until I eventually made peace with the fact that there's no cure for Alzheimer's and I would never be able to read these journals to her. So let's talk about my system. When I first started, I was really into doing kind of an art journal type of situation going on, so a lot of my pages were just filled with drawings and these silly things where you had a drawing on top and like a drawing on the bottom. And I thought that what I wanted to do was art journaling and then just write a little bit in between so that I could, take my mind off of things. Through the years, I also tried having a planner on the side, but I think I ultimately just figured that I enjoy having everything in one place. So I mainly just carried one journal in which I did everything. I wrote, I drew, I wrote poetry, I planned my days, I made to-do lists, and so my journals were just a bunch of different things from my days. And usually at the end I liked keeping little trinkets of the years. These were just some gifts that my dad had given me, and this journal is obviously very destroyed, but looking back at it, it gives me very beautiful memories. I also had some stickers. So this was my first ever journal. This was from 2014 to 2015, so it lasted me a year. And then from then on I just kept on having a journal every year because I realized that it really helped clear my mind off of things. Just whenever I felt alone or I felt like I didn't have anyone to talk to, I could just go to my journal and write absolutely anything that I wanted to write about, and just kind of decompress and also let my thoughts out and analyze them with an external opinion. So I think the reason why I just always kept up with journaling is because I realized how much it was actually helping me on the daily basis. I stopped feeling so alone, and I started feeling like I had an outlet to put my emotions in, and I'm a very emotional person, so that's very, very necessary for me. So then from 2015 to 2016 we move on to this atrocious little thing. I just liked making a lot of like little artistic things, mostly inspired by Tumblr, I'm pretty sure. There's this drawing here that I was so proud of when I was younger. When I made it, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna be an artist. And it was just like a very nice outlet to just write and make drawings. I had this project that I did in class when I was younger, and I left the basis of the project here. Everything is kind of falling apart at this point. I don't usually look too much into my older journals, because I think they are just little time capsules, and it's interesting to be able to physically hold a period of my life. Then I just decided to have this little journal when I was a little bit older, a year later in 2017, and this was actually very nice. I put some pictures of myself when I was younger, and I'm holding a cat, obviously, because my love for cats started when I was very, very young. And this was just a smaller journal. I think it was a random little notebook that I had laying around. Also, I did all of the pages with washi tape because I thought it would look cool. And it actually looks pretty nice. And also I did some, I don't even know what this is anymore. I definitely had a vision, but I don't know what the vision is these days. Also, there was some point in my life when I started trying to make journaling a chore. So I would read online that you had to like sit down every night and every morning to journal, because that is how you can best get the effects of journaling for yourself. But that never really worked for me, because a lot of times I would sit down in the morning or at night to journal and I wouldn't feel inspired, or I wouldn't want to write about anything particular, and it would feel like sort of an obligation, and I started kind of not wanting to do it anymore. And so I just decided, you know, I'm going to journal whenever I want to journal, whenever I feel like I need to journal, and to write down some things that are making me happy or making me sad or making me stressed. So I just always avoided making it a chore after I realized that it was not working for me. You know, it may work for some people to actually set dedicated times at which you're going to journal, but for me it didn't work. It just felt like an obligation, and it took away the magic and the positive feelings from it for me. Then this was my very Tumblr inspired journal. This was from 2017. No, this was from 2018 to 2020. It was a bigger journal. This is kind of when I started trying to do bullet journaling as well. I would do monthly spreads here. Also, I started doing more like artistic spreads too. I took these photos from magazines and I thought that was a very, very fun project. Then I would do my little monthly spreads, like this was from October of 2018 maybe, or 2019. I don't even know because I didn't put the date, but it's probably 2018. And I have little notes falling off the journal. And this is kind of when I realized that I could have everything in one. You know, if I wanted to do a monthly spread, I didn't need to have another book or journal for it. I could do everything in the same place. Of course, for some people this will not work because, you know, you like having dedicated spaces for each thing. So you want to have a music journal and you want to have a planner and a journal in which you write about your dreams. But I kind of just realized that I wanted to take these things with me everywhere, and I wanted to have them all in one place so that would be easier for me. So each of these journals have walked around in my bag for long periods of times, you know, until I was finishing them. And I just realized that I liked having everything in one place because it was just easier. And I wrote a lot of little notes, which are all falling off. And I made these little note things that I would put in my journal, and it just has a bunch of different things, little memos from places I visited or pictures of people that I was with. At the end I did my hiragana chart because this is when I started learning Japanese, and I also was trying to do like a year of emotions, but I kind of stopped because I don't know, I think I got bored with it, but I got some done. Then we have this journal, which is the one that I used for the most amount of years. It was from 2021 to 2024. And this is when I decided that I wanted to do a little picture of myself at the beginning of every journal, just so I see what I looked like. Here I had pink hair and a little plant, and I just thought this was a nice idea so I could see what I looked like when I started writing that specific journal. And this one I also started doing receipts for different places that I went to and little pictures. I started doodling again, which was very fun. And I just kind of let my creativity out, you know. I don't have many constraints or rules in my own journaling. I don't tell myself there are things I cannot do in my journal or that I need another journal to do them. If I feel like just writing a bunch of random words because that's what I'm thinking in my brain, I will write a page of just random words. It doesn't have to be beautiful. It doesn't have to mean anything for anyone else, because this is just for me. It's not for anyone else to read, you know. So I think it's just really, really healthy to let your pages just be whatever they are, you know. It doesn't have to be cohesive. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to be beautiful. It doesn't have to be decorated, you know. You can take a page and just write. And I did that in a lot of pages. I just wrote and wrote and wrote because I needed to process, you know. And I realized that by the end of the page that I was writing, I was feeling so much clearer about the thing that I was writing about, you know. If it felt like scrambled eggs in my brain at some point, by the time I finish writing about it, I feel just so much better. And so a lot of my pages are also just black ink, write it out, you know. It doesn't have any decorations. It mostly doesn't make any sense, but for me it really helped, and that's the most important thing, you know. So just let yourself write whatever you're feeling. Don't be afraid of it looking ugly, because it doesn't matter. You're the only one who's going to be looking at it, and you don't even have to look back on it, you know? You can write it and that's done. It's immortalized there. No one is ever going to see it again. You don't have to see it again if you don't want to, you know? It doesn't matter. It's something that you're doing for yourself right now. Now, of course, it's also really cool whenever you do decide to look back on the things that you wrote and see how different you were. You know, you can really notice a lot of self-development and growth through the way that you were processing things a couple of years ago and the way you're processing things now. You know, I figure that I look at the things that I would write a couple of years ago, and everything would be this big drama, chaos, nothing would ever end. It would be despair forever. And in the way that I wrote really showed that I was extremely anxious in all sorts of situations, and it always seemed like the end of the world. But right now I feel like I can write, okay, I need to process this thing. This is the problem that I'm currently having. Can I solve it? What are the solutions? Can I do something about it right now? It's a way more structured way of looking at problem solving, you know, and it's really, really cool to be able to see just how chaotic my 13-year-old mind was and how much more structured I feel like I am now. And I'm probably going to be noticing a big difference in 10 years from now too. So you can look back on your journals if you'd like to, but you don't have to, you know. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to write something so that your future self will think that you are so eloquent and you write so beautiful, you know. You just write whatever feels true to you at this moment, and that's what's going to help you the most. And now we have moved on to this journal. I've been using Moleskines now. This one has a cover that I made for it. I realized that I really like Moleskine, just a black one. And this was from the end of 2024 to now, 2025. So it's been about a year since I've had it, and just has a bunch of cats in the front. Then for my picture, I just have a picture of myself with my teddy bear and my old journal too, which is this one, because I decided to take a picture with two of the things that I like the most. And also I have a sticker that a friend of mine gave me. And you know, I've just been doing a lot of just black ink writing. I do have some train receipts here and there. I have my receipt from when I had a medical consultation, and I've been writing a little bit more in pink too. But you know, this journal has just been really about writing it down. It doesn't have as many decorations as my first journals had. You know, this was very fun doing this silly little thing, but I feel like for now, maybe I'm just not as artistic as I used to be when I was younger. Maybe I'm becoming an adult or something. I'm just kidding. There's a lot of very artistic adults. It's probably just a me problem. Just been writing it out and processing things and just keeping memories through text. And it's been such a light journey, you know. It has been bringing me so much peace and comfort in knowing that I have this that is always with me, and I can always write in it whenever I feel overwhelmed or if I'm feeling happy and I want to tell someone about it, but I don't feel like I have anyone close to me right now who I can tell these things to. I just always have my journal, you know. And in this one, I've been choosing the Moleskines that have the little pocket, so I can keep a bunch of memories. I have some pictures that I took that don't fit in the pages, or these are some outlines for videos that I did for my main channel that I want to keep because I want to know how I used to make videos before, and I have a bunch of little notes that I want to keep for my future self to see, or just that I want to keep somewhere even if no one sees it. I have the books that I've been reading this year too, which I can make a video about if you'd like. Having this little pocket is just very, very useful, and I like keeping journals that have these pockets so I can keep a bunch of things. I also really like journals that have this strap so I can fully close it and I know it's not going to be like this, you know. So this is how I started journaling and how I'm journaling these days, and also my collection of journals, which I didn't intend on showing you, but I guess I did. And yeah, I really enjoyed this one. This is my 2021 to 2024, and it's just very beautiful. I have my psychiatrist's phone number in the back just in case, you never know. And yeah, very, very nice to be able to hold my past, you know. So yeah, I hope you have enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you all very soon, alright? Thank you so much for watching. Bye!